So we know that something's not right with the Russian economy, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out why. They can't spend like drunken sailors on military destruction of their neighbor and the economy be, just humming along. That plus sanctions being cut off by the West. I was reading Putin's speech yesterday about at the BRICS conference about how they're rerouting all their trade routes to the global South and to other new BRIC partners as opposed to the Western, where they had been sending oil, even to the tune of commissioning new ice-breaking nuclear fleet in order to get that oil out. They're concerned. The Russian bank, centralized bank, just hiked rates at 3.5% at an extraordinary meeting after the ruble plummeted. This came on the heels of the 100 to $1 to ruble or ruble to dollar ratio, which it's bad. So with that as a background, that's the context. Someone sent me this video from Simon Super Yachts. Now, I don't have a yacht or care for a yacht or whatever, and this channel is all about yachts. 600 some odd videos about how yachts work and that kind of thing. Okay, the beginning of the video talked all about Putin seizing a Russian oligarch's yacht. Now, this can be either one of two things. Well, one of three things. One, it's just a criminal offense and nothing to see here. But it could be political persecution. Two, it could be that he's doing it for some reason. And when I say political persecution, I mean a la Navalny or something like that. Two, it could be that he's seizing this yacht because he is trying to silence somebody who talked against him. And then that is like a Soviet-era repression kind of something in the sense of talking against the war. And you'll see a little bit about that. And three, he needs the money. Or it could be a combination of all these things. In any of these scenarios, it's all bad. Let's just see what it had to say in this video.
This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. All right, so our first story is about Russia filing charges to seize assets from a Russian businessman. So the Russian authorities are taking Russian businessman Andrey Melnichenko to court after filing a lawsuit against him. Obviously, if you watch the channel frequently, you'll know Andrey Melnichenko is the owner of multiple super yachts, which we'll go into in a second. They're attempting to seize.
Remember, this is the Super Yacht channel. This has nothing to do with geopolitics as such. It's not Fox News. It's not CNN. It's not BBC. It's none of these things. They're talking about yachts, and it just happens to be something within the yacht community. Who knew?
One of his companies that is part of his metals and mining empire. Now, Forbes listed Melinchenko as Russia's richest man, his net worth being around $25 billion with a B, billion. This lawsuit is an attempt to nationalize the company, claiming its purchase 5 years ago was corrupt.
Now, you have to ask yourself why they would want to do that. Like, what's the motive if they want to nationalize the company and take it away from them? Is it because they need the money, or because he's behaving badly, or what's going on?
Purchase of the company Sebeco, which operates thermal power plants in Siberia, was in 2018 by Melinchenko. He purchased the company from a chap called Mikhail Abazov, and at the time he was a government minister. Now, just a few months after the purchase, Abazov was arrested and accused of embezzlement and fraud. His assets were seized by the Russian state and he was put in prison, where he remains to this day. Now, the Financial Times say that this is part of a Kremlin campaign for wealthy Russians to bring their wealth back to Russia, rewarding the ones who support the war whilst attacking the ones who voice any criticism, such as Melinchenko.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So Putin would be getting a twofer here. He'd be getting the wealth from this guy, he'd be able to nationalize the company, be able to take his yacht, that kind of thing. But he's also silencing criticism. And this is really important because Anne Applebaum's interview just the other day, I was reading, and she said this, and the first line here is not all that fair because, of course, she has a certain bias. But Putin will be remembered as a man who really set out to destroy his own country. He didn't set out to do it, but is he doing it? I think so. He has impoverished the Russians. He has also brought back a form of dictatorship that I think that most Russians had thought they had left behind. That's right. While Ukraine has been on this path more toward westernization, Russia has been moving back towards Soviet-era kind of actions. Remember that Putin's regime, for the first decade that Putin was president, had elements of freedom in it. It wasn't a totalitarian state. There was no thought police, no thought control, the kind that people had known from the Soviet era. He is now slowly bringing that back. So this is a crushing, not of just dissent, but a crushing of all politics, all imagination, all culture, all activity, anything independent. What he's really doing is destroying modern Russia. And I think that's what he'll be remembered for overall. And it seems like that's what it's going to be. Just a little bit more about the background here. And then I'll let you just go and make up your mind. Okay? Here we are.
Describe the war as tragic. Whilst others have had opportunities to purchase assets owned by overseas companies that have been seized by the Russian government. Oleg Deripaska, he had a hotel in Sochi, a complex. He had that seized from him by the Russian state after being critical about the war in Ukraine. Contrary to what the Financial Times says, if anything, I think this is, it seems to be a cautionary tale of what not to do. If all of their wealth was in Russian banks, the state could very easily seize it.
And this is why they have it overseas, because they want to get it out of being able to be controlled. Like they know enough to know that they can't leave it in Russia, or the Russian government could at any time reach in and grab it. And that's what they're apparently trying to do right now. And again, I don't know what the reason is, but it seems like one of three reasons. It's certainly not because, well, okay, I'm going to stop on that. Just listen to a little bit more of what he has to say.
Aim to do just that with Mr. Melinchenko's company, Sebeco, in Russia. So the state prosecutors say that they have uncovered corrupt collusion between Melinchenko and Abizov in the 2018 sale of the company. And Mr. Melinchenko has based himself in the United Arab Emirates since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He was sanctioned by the EU soon after the war started, even though he's lived in Europe for many years. His 500...
Now, this has happened to most of the Russian oligarchs, so that's not surprising. But he's been taking precautions, trying to guard his assets.
$1 billion sailing yacht, simply named A, was arrested in Trieste by the Italian government and is currently under their control. And his motor yacht, also named simply A, has been in Dubai pretty much since switching off at AIS in the Maldives last year. If you follow the channel, you'll know that we occasionally do updates on motor yacht A, showing the location of the vessel and the fact that they have not been flying a flag for a long time because they've had no flag state. We're going to go into that a little bit more.
I mean, it's just interesting. And again, just remember that everything that you saw here, this was not like the BBC. This was a channel about yachts. Okay, that's all that I have, and I'll let you make up your mind about what you think is actually happening in the Russian economy. I think it's another sign that the economy is really feeling some severe turbulence. I'm not going to say it's going to fall apart tomorrow, but it's going through some real pains. All right, have a good one. Thank you for your time. Please give me a like if you got something out of this. Subscribe if you want to hear more of what I have to say. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.